The rain had not been in the forecast, yet it fell anyway, thin and relentless, as if the sky itself had chosen this moment to grieve. The billionaire stood alone at the edge of the cemetery, his black coat heavy with damp, his breath shallow as he stared at the marble headstone bearing his daughter's name. He had faced hostile boardrooms, collapsing markets, and the sharp cruelty of fate without flinching, but nothing had ever hollowed him the way this place did. Just as he lowered his eyes to the grave, something caught his attention that made his chest tighten with shock. A janitor in a faded uniform was kneeling there, shoulders shaking, a small child clutched to his side, both of them crying as if the ground beneath them had cracked open. In that instant, the billionaire felt the world tilt, because this grave was supposed to be his pain alone, and yet someone else was breaking apart on it. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even broken hearts can find healing, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The billionaire had not planned to come on this particular day. He rarely planned these visits at all, preferring to let guilt and longing ambush him when he least expected it. His daughter had died 3 years earlier, yet time had not softened the loss. Wealth had offered no protection, no remedy, no distraction strong enough to erase the image of her final smile or the echo of her laughter in the hallways of a mansion that now felt like a mausoleum. He had built an empire from grit and ambition, but fatherhood had been the one role he had never truly learned how to perform. By the time he realized how distant he had become, how meetings and mergers had replaced bedtime stories and school recitals, it was already too late. Her illness had moved faster than his remorse, leaving him with apologies that would never be heard. As he stood there, memories pressed in from every side, vivid and merciless. He remembered the way she used to tug at his sleeve when he was distracted, the way she would wait patiently, believing he would eventually look down and see her. He remembered promising himself he would do better, tomorrow, next week, after the deal closed. The cemetery smelled of wet earth and old flowers, and each breath felt like an admission of failure. That was when he noticed the janitor more clearly, the way the man's hands trembled as he held the child, the way the child's small fingers dug into the fabric of the uniform as if it were the only anchor left in the world. Confusion warred with irritation at first. This was a private family plot, meticulously maintained, guarded by security and silence. The janitor's presence felt like an intrusion into a sacred wound. Yet the rawness of the scene stopped the billionaire from calling out or stepping forward. There was no mistaking the grief radiating from the man and the child. It was not casual sorrow or idle curiosity. It was the kind of pain that left the body slumped, the face streaked with tears, the spirit momentarily emptied of strength. The billionaire stayed where he was, hidden behind a tall oak, watching as the janitor pressed his forehead briefly against the headstone, as if seeking forgiveness or offering a prayer. The child leaned against him, exhausted by crying, eyes swollen, breath hitching. Something about the child stirred a familiar ache in the billionaire's chest. The age seemed close to what his daughter would have been now, had life not been so cruel. That realization tightened his throat and softened the anger he had initially felt. As minutes passed, curiosity overtook restraint. The billionaire stepped closer, his shoes sinking slightly into the damp grass. The janitor noticed him then, stiffening with sudden fear, as though expecting reprimand or dismissal. The billionaire raised a hand, not in command, but in a silent plea for calm. He took in the man's worn face, the lines etched by years of quiet labor, and the child's tear-streaked cheeks. In that moment, power and status felt absurd, meaningless decorations on a life equally vulnerable to loss. The janitor's story unfolded not in words but in fragments of reality the billionaire began to piece together over time. He learned, through careful observation and later inquiry, that the janitor had been working at the cemetery for years, long before the billionaire's daughter was laid to rest. He'd been there in the early mornings, trimming hedges, washing stones, whispering small prayers for strangers whose names he did not know. What the billionaire did not know until that day was that his daughter had once noticed the janitor too. During one of her treatments, when loneliness pressed in on her harder than the pain, she had wandered the hospital garden and met the janitor during his lunch break. He had been kind to her, offering quiet company, never asking about her illness, never speaking down to her. Over time, as she began volunteering at the cemetery as part of a school project, she crossed paths with him again. She had spoken of him warmly, describing his gentleness, his patience, his stories about his own child. Those were conversations the billionaire had half listened to, distracted, unaware they would become precious clues to a connection he had never seen. The janitor's child, it turned out, had been born with a fragile heart, a condition that required constant care and medication the janitor could barely afford. When the billionaire's daughter learned this, she had insisted on helping in small, quiet ways. She shared her lunch, brought books for the child, and spent afternoons sitting on a bench, talking about dreams and fears, forming a bond that felt like family. On the day she died, the janitor and his child had come to say goodbye, standing at a distance, believing they had no right to intrude on a family's private sorrow. Years later, the janitor continued to visit the grave on anniversaries and difficult days, bringing his child along, telling stories about the girl who had shown them kindness when the world felt heavy. The child had grown up hearing her name spoken with reverence, learning that goodness did not depend on wealth or status, but on attention and care. That rainy day had marked what would have been her birthday, and the janitor had brought a small paper flower, carefully folded, because real ones were too expensive. As the billionaire absorbed this truth, shame settled over him like a second coat of rain. His daughter had been more present in the lives of strangers than he had been in hers during her final years. She had understood compassion in ways he was still learning. Watching the janitor and child grieve, he realized that love left echoes far beyond bloodlines, that his daughter's life had mattered in ways he had never measured. The billionaire's world began to shift in subtle but profound ways after that encounter. He did not announce grand gestures or seek recognition. Instead, he started paying attention. He learned the janitor's name, ensured the child received proper medical care without ever framing it as charity. He funded a small clinic in the neighborhood where the janitor lived, not with plaques or press releases, but with quiet intent. Each action felt like a conversation with his daughter's memory, an attempt to honor what she had been trying to teach him all along. Grief did not disappear, but it transformed. The cemetery visits became less about punishment and more about connection. The billionaire would sometimes see the janitor and child there, the child now healthier, stronger, holding books instead of tissues. They would share the space in silence, bound by a love that had crossed boundaries of class and circumstance. The billionaire found himself imagining his daughter, smiling at the sight, pleased that her small acts of kindness had grown into something enduring. His mansion no longer felt quite as empty. He filled it with purpose rather than possessions, redirecting his energy from endless accumulation to meaningful impact. Employees noticed changes, a softness in his decisions, a willingness to listen. The empire he had built remained, but it was no longer the center of his identity. The true measure of success had shifted, guided by the memory of a child who had known instinctively what mattered. As the years passed, the story of the janitor and the child became a quiet legend in the billionaire's life, a reminder that suffering connects people in unexpected ways. The grave remained a place of sorrow but also of gratitude. Rain or shine, the billionaire would stand there, sometimes alone, sometimes not, understanding at last that love does not end with death, and that even the smallest kindness can ripple outward, touching lives unseen. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you have lost or someone whose kindness changed you. Please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive and reaching those who need them most. And before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with a heart or a short message about someone who made a difference in your life, even in a small way. The billionaire still visits his daughter's grave, but he no longer stands there as a man broken by regret. He stands as a father learning to listen, a human being awakened by compassion, and a witness to the truth that love, once given, never truly disappears.